Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Bratt. I'm the CEO of ECA, and I'm here with my colleague, Rob Driscoll, Director of Legal and Business. We want to talk to you about the payment consultation that's currently undergoing consultation. And as you can see from this slide, we see this as a once-in-a-generation chance to make a significant change. So we've been working with the government on this, and we've been consulting with our members, and we're going to share with you through this presentation our proposed response. But fundamentally, the purpose for putting this out is to get you to respond also. The once in a generation chance will happen if the industry steps up and supports this change. And the only way to do that is by submitting a response to the consultation. So at the end of this presentation, there will be a QR code for you to access ECA's template response, which we will be encouraging you to access and to submit. Okay, enough of introduction. Let me go on. I'm going to talk to Rob, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about our response.
So this consultation has been launched by the Prime Minister himself, Keir Starmer, name-checked electricians, amongst other professions who need the late payment landscape reconciled with legislative intervention in order to make a fairer trading landscape and a more prosperous growth agenda within the UK. We've got 3 documents that were released at the end of July. The QR code on the right-hand side will take you to each of the 3 documents. The first is the government's small business plan, which name checks that they need to reconcile delayed and late payment in order to help the economy grow. The second is the government's research into late payment that identifies how bad systemic late payment is across the entire economy. One of the stats out of that research was that 38 businesses a day go bust because of late payment. And the third is the consultation itself, where the questions are asked and anybody is entitled to respond to that consultation. The deadline, you can see there, is the 23rd of October, which is a must for consultations to go in. You can submit your consultation either online or via email.
So, Rob, first question that the consultation asks is, should audit committees comment and make recommendations on payment data reports?
From us, that's a yes. Large firms have to make payment reports to government. So if you don't know that, if you exceed 2 of 3 statutory tests, you have to make payment reports. Audit committees commenting on their payment performance data means there's a monitoring and enforcement check. Otherwise, who knows whether the data is right or wrong? So we fully support that.
And number 2, Rob, should UK payment terms be limited to 60 days?
So currently, the law says that they're limited to 60 days, but the parties can agree longer so long as it's not grossly unfair. Nobody knows what grossly unfair means. So this is about removing the massive loophole in the law that allows parties to go beyond 60 days and having a simple 60-day cap on late payment or payment terms in the UK. So that's going to be extremely helpful for parties to know. Doesn't mean you've got to go 60 days, it's just a cap.
And should there be a 30-day time limit on the ability of a payer to dispute invoices in order to delay payment?
Now, there's some quandary in our industry over that. How does that work? Or how would it work with the Construction Act, where you have payment notice and pay less notice? But overall, we support the concept of having a 30-day cap where you either dispute, put up or shut up over the invoice or the application you've received. Again, doesn't mean people have got to take 30 days. You can still have your pay less notices before final date for payment. But we don't see the Construction Act as at odds with this. We see it capable of reconciliation between the two. There's just some finer detail work to be done.
And should 8% interest on late payment be mandatory?
We think yes. Why? Because at the moment, parties are free to agree some other substantial remedy. In JCT contracts, that's 5%. In NEC, it's 2%. And what you can see is that parties who are payers try to contract out of it or reduce it to something that is less painful, less of a deterrent. It's not relevant unless you're in breach of contract by paying someone late, so it shouldn't matter. It's just a deterrent so that if parties are late, they can recover some of the costs of missing that finance. So yes.
Should large firms report on interest owed and the amount of interest they've paid?
Yes. At the moment, they still have that residual liability for paying interest on late payment, but you can't see it. It's not reported anywhere, not even in annual accounts reports or anything else like that. So making them report on how much of a liability they're carrying will give payees a red flag as to whether they really want to work with them or not.
So do you think fines for perpetual late payers would improve payment behaviour?
Yes, currently the law puts all the focus onto payees to spend money chasing money they're missing. Whereas actually this measure would mean that payers in producing their payment data would get fined if they fall below a certain benchmark of behaviour. And that would take the pressure off the SMEs who are being paid late to spend money chasing money.
And should payment reports reduce from twice a year to just once a year?
No, not in our opinion. As soon as you put that reporting to once a year, you can see how 11 and a half months later, that payment data is basically discredited because it's too far out of date. For the data to be credible, useful, and inform payees as to whether they want to work with payers or not, and whether those clients are a viable business prospect, it's got to be current and up to date. So it's got to be at least twice a year to be useful.
Thank you, Rob. So on to the thorny issue of retentions. So people may remember there was a consultation on this back in 2018, conclusion being that the industry couldn't decide what it wanted, therefore nothing was done, at which point there were three options: abolish, protect, or do nothing. And as I say, they chose do nothing. Where are we now at through our work with government? We've got to the point where the consultation just has two options: to abolish retentions or to protect them. Both or whichever the outcome from that would be provided in legislation. So it would be the law. So first question on retentions. Would legislative abolition of retentions help? So it would be illegal to hold money in lieu of a defect. So Rob, what do you think?
It would certainly help. And my instant reaction would be surely that would be the cleanest way forward. Ban clauses which allow parties to deduct cash retentions. My worry is that where there is a law, there is a way around the law. It wouldn't take that many clever lawyers to find a way around it. So I have slight residual concerns over that. And if you are a payer or a client procuring works you usually have defects, some patent, some latent. Is that the fairest way forward is also a concern. But overall, yeah, we'd support legislative abolition.
Okay, so support, but with concerns. But would protection be better?
Seemingly, if you look at some of the international landscape, that's been tried and worked both in New South Wales and Australia and in New Zealand since 2023, where the payer simply doesn't have access to the retention cash as part of its working capital. It has to put it into a bank account, identify it as belonging to the subcontractor on a given project, and it's therefore protected should the payer go bust, and also protected should the payee go bust during that period. So it's fair to both sides. If somebody wants to access the cash, they need to replace it with a bond, and the market has stepped up in New Zealand to provide those bonds. So it seems fairer for those who still want to use retentions. We also understand that there is a level below which people have stepped away from using retentions because it's just not worth it in terms of the administrative costs. And we're encouraging that solution. So we support this solution, and it's our preferred solution.
What do you think payers would prefer to protect the retention sums?
Payers that still continue to procure projects with people at lowest prices who have residual concerns over the financial viability of those entities will still want to have security, whether it be parent company guarantees, performance bonds, and or retentions. And therefore, our instinct is that they will still prefer to have retentions in place, but protected from the risk of either party going bust. What they won't be so in favour of is abolition.
And will there be any hidden costs?
Well, there will be some residual costs to update the technology people are currently using in terms of payment platforms to cater for this. We've spoken to the tech community and they're able to move in this direction within a matter of months. There may be some other costs to those who currently rely on the working capital of the payees to prop up their own business model. But that will, in the fullness of times, those parameters of their businesses will change.
Okay, and how long do you think we should allow for industry to adopt such a change?
The view we're taking is 12 to 18 months, and that is because we know that the average contract duration is 12 to 18 months. And as we saw from 2023 with rampant inflation, all parties of the supply chain, including clients, will need time. Contract bodies will need time, and guidance and PR campaigns will need time to bed in and make the industry aware to transition to these new requirements, regardless of what the solution looks like.
Okay, thank you, Rob. That's very helpful. So just on retention, to summarize, before I summarize overall, what we're saying is we support both options.
Correct.
We would be happy to have either of those introduced through legislation, but we see protection as the most practicable and the one that's likely to deliver the better outcome. But fundamentally, we're supporting both because we want to see change. Okay, right. Hopefully you found that informative. But as I said right at the beginning, the purpose for putting this out is to encourage you, the listeners, to respond to this consultation. The government want more responses. The more responses there are in support of particular proposals, the more likely they are to happen. This consultation is very, very good for the supply chain, as you will have seen from the presentation. It won't happen if people don't respond to support it. So what you see on screen is a QR code which takes you to our template response. You can take elements of that and put it into your own words, or you could just simply put your own details on the top of it and send it off that way. Whichever way, please, please do respond. I liken this to being like a conversation in the pub with a friend. Don't moan about the government if you haven't voted. In this case, don't moan about poor payment practice and not getting this legislation adopted if you don't respond. So please, please do respond. Thanks for listening.